Welcome to Office Hours. I am Linda Hammes, co-founder of Tertulia and your host for Office Hours each and every Friday at 12:30 Eastern Time. Today, we are sitting down with C. Hope Clark, mystery author and founder of Funds for Writers, a rich resource for writers looking to fund their careers through contests, grants, and other paying opportunities. Hope built Funds for Writers after leaving a 25-year career managing budgets and grants for a federal agency, and she has spent the years since helping writers create a viable and sustainable livelihood as an author and not just as a passion project. So she's dispensing advice on two sides here about her own book promotion, about which she is very savvy, and about what she has seen work for authors looking to get paid for the work that they are doing. Welcome, Hope. Thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Great to see you. Take us back to when you went full-time into writing. You had been in a full-time career managing budgets, working for the federal government, and you were in a writing group in Georgia. You were writing, and you changed your trajectory. What was that like? What was that major change, life change like for you?
Well, I've always written, and I've always known that the words were powerful, and I used them in my previous career up to the point I was an administrative director for a federal agency. It got to the point I wrote everything for the agency, and then learned to present it to the agency. So I've written and spoken for undersecretaries, secretaries, congressmen, you name it. Uh, but I wanted to write for me. And I was getting a little tired of the politics. The next step for me would have been a political step, and I didn't want that. So I decided I needed a plan to start writing on my own. So I started freelancing part-time while I was working just to see, pro rata. If I put in 20 hours, what kind of income is that going to be? And I did that for a couple of years. And when I realized I could make $1 or $2 out of this. I stayed long enough to accept any kind of early retirement just so I'd have health insurance. and and then I made the leap. But it was a family choice. My husband took a promotion. We literally picked up and moved so we could do it. Because to me, if I was going to do this, I needed to commit. And of course, that meant compromising with the family. And it's the best thing I ever did. It really is. But the group in Georgia kind of was a little bit of a catalyst. I was doing my freelancing and writing for, back then, website writing was fairly new. And I was writing in particular for one site that took a liking to my writing and then asked, could I speak to a book club and a writers group on their behalf? And I went and did that. And they totally derailed my speech. I was going to talk about writing and writing for the web, and then I kept hearing about I can't afford this, I can't afford that, I don't know how to apply here or how to apply there. And so I started fielding questions, and it totally, like I said, derailed. And I realized there was something here. And I started Funds for Writers because I realized almost every writer in that room had zero clue how to earn a living at writing.
So you took a risk. Give us the overview on what your books are about.
They're mystery. It's because I love to read mystery. I love to watch mystery. I like a story where it pits the author against the reader. And it's just about the only genre that does that. It's the author's going to write and say, you're not going to get this until I get to the climax, and the reader's going to pick it up and go, oh yes, I am. It's a nice little competition. And I had done some internal investigations for the federal government, and in one of those investigations, I literally met my husband, who was a federal investigator. So between the two of us and our experiences, we did a lot of what ifs. What if this, that story? What if this crime, that crime? And so that became my go-to for writing. I love writing mysteries, and right now I've got 23 out. I've got number 24 coming out in November. And
Wow, that's incredible.
I put out about two a year.
Of course, managing to get out two books a year is its own feat, but you are doing promotion on top of that. What does your book promotion and marketing routine look like?
There is no plan, so to speak. I do it wherever I possibly can. I tout myself as an author. There's no doubt there. If somebody asks me what I do, I'm an author. I write mysteries and I own it. And I think a lot of writers don't do that. But I will present just about anywhere. And I've gone from the beginning years where I got paid for nothing. There might be six people in the room. I've been there, done that. Sold one book at an event. That just comes with the territory. So everywhere I possibly can, I make an appearance. And I've got like six events in the next month because I have a book coming out in November. But that's because I'm always seen. And it's wherever I go, I'm an author. I have funds for writers. And as much as I tried to drop that once upon a time so that I could write my novels, it's like having a tiger by the tail. It's appreciated by so many. I went, well, let's use it. So I use it to promote as well. And I also freelance. And I see a lot of writers that kind of turn their nose up at that and go, but I write novels. Well, I do too. But freelancing puts you out there. And if you're a writer, you should be able to write anything, in my opinion. And I have written everything and anything. I've written obituaries, I've written resumes, I've written speeches. Whatever it is, you try to do it because you need to show you're a master of words. And if you're appreciated by anyone on whatever you write, the next thing they're going to do is look you up and see, well, what else does she do? And then suddenly you've got a fan for your books. So that just comes with wherever wherever I am, whatever I write, whatever I do, I have to be able to mention my books. And it works. I had an editor of a magazine come to me and say, my wife loves your books. Would you write an article for us? Sure. I wrote the article with the condition I had to be able to say in the bio that I wrote these novels. And then you turn right around and bing, 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 I got new readers coming to me. It just works to have that symbiotic relationship and be always open to be able to writing something and be consistent. Gosh, you got to be consistent. You can't just write a book and disappear. You've got to always be out there. And I answer every email. I don't care how many it is. I answer every email.
In all of these efforts that you make, what kind of moves the needle for you on sales?
Actually, I do funds for writers, but it's not until I promise y'all she didn't even know this was coming until I joined Tertulia to see that it's such an easy way to put out an author newsletter. It was only with that I've now set up the first of every month. I will put out some little author newsletter. I've always had funds for writers, which doesn't fit into this package, but the author newsletter does. And it's easy. And this is from someone who back in the early years took HTML classes so I could design my own website. I know what it takes to have a decent looking website, and I've done WordPress, you name it, I've done it. And it's been a pain in the butt to maintain your own website. This makes it easy, but it also makes the newsletter easier. And I think authors need to have a newsletter. I really do. So, but personal appearance, in terms of moving the needle, I think nothing works better than having a presence. And a lot of writers want to write and not be out there. And I believe you need to be out there because that is a spark that can't be done for you. You connect with a reader. That reader is going to get you 5 to 10 more readers. And your goal in the long run is to have those 100 golden readers who will come back and buy anything you write, but they're in turn passing it on to 5 or 10 others. And then before you know it, you've got 1,000 loyal readers. And then no matter what you write, you've got those sales every single time. It's a long tail approach, but I firmly believe in it. That appearance and connecting with human beings is, to me, the best way to make sales.
I could not agree more on the newsletter as important and really maybe that so-called mysterious alchemical holy grail of word of mouth that everyone talks about in book publishing.
Hmm.
Maybe it's not so mysterious after all, is kind of what I take away. You're saying, is it so mysterious if you just commit to connecting with a reader who writes to you? You commit to staying after your reading and talking to people and show that consistent connection to each and every reader. Well, it is natural that they share. So that's really beautiful. And I will always accept a spontaneous infomercial for Tertulia for authors during office hours. So thank you for that. But tell us advice for promotion. What do you tell other writers?
Uh, I tell them don't rely on buying an ad. Ads are cold. Ads are very much AI these days, and there you got a whole sea of people out there. The minute they smell AI, they turn. So you need to be unique and genuine, but you need a brand. You actually need a brand. And there's a lot of writers who are, I'm going to write a little historic fiction now, and I'm going to write a little nonfiction there. I'm going to write a children's book here. And they're not defined. And so the reader doesn't know to read them. Readers tend to have their own genre. They don't read across genres very often. I'm a firm mystery reader, so that's who I'm looking for. And if somebody's bouncing from genre to genre, that's too much work to put into whether or not I want to read that author. Also, that author has not devoted themselves to my genre that I like. So I'm going to go to someone who does. So branding is so important. People need, when they think of your name, they need to know immediately what you do. And I am big about the human aspect of things. I go by the C. Hope Clark, and there's something about that rolling off the tongue works. I didn't plan that, but it works. Uh, I don't have a logo. I've tried logos, didn't move the needle for me, didn't do much for me. So Southern Destination Mysteries is what I write. That's it, C.O. Clark, Southern Destination Mysteries. I've had people say, well, why don't you come to San Francisco and put a story there? Nope, that's not what I do. Why not New York? It's not what I do. I've been asked to write true crime. I graduated high school with somebody who killed his wife. And I had the class come to me and say, you need to write this true crime. And I go, no, that is not what I do. You got to be true and devoted to what you want to write so you become known for that. And whether that involves a logo or certain colors or a certain setting is up to you. Mine is Southern. It actually tends to be mostly South Carolina. And my biggest series is on Edisto Beach. I've got a lot of fans at Edisto Beach. So sure, I'm going to lead with that whenever possible. And some people would take issue with this, but I'm gonna own it because I've walked the walk and talked the talk. Is I don't do events where there's a dozen other authors. I just don't do it. It's not financially, it's not lucrative for me, and it's probably not for them. I don't ask other people how well did you do, because when I'll give you an example, and I've spoken to librarians about this. Okay, so you invite a dozen authors, and they're all at these different tables. They're all selling books. They're selling all kinds of genres. And then you get people walking in. Those people are on the average going to buy 2 books. Now, if you got 12 authors, that's going to dilute what you're going to sell. You got 6, you might sell a little more. I recently did one for a local library. And I didn't know until the week before that they had built up to 8 authors in the room. I would not have accepted. Luckily, it was only a couple miles from the house, so I went. But I sold one book in about 3 hours, and that doesn't work for me. So I tend to lean toward those events where I am the sole author. I might sign with one other. But to do that anywhere else, you have to expect that your sales are going to be diluted. And readers aren't going to buy more books because there's more authors. They've only got a limited pocketbook. Also, events at libraries, and excuse me, librarians, people that wander into libraries don't go in to buy books, they go in to check out books for free. They are not book buyers. So I will do the occasional library, but not on a regular basis because that's not my market. also need to know where you are in the pecking order. If there's a dozen authors and you're a debut just getting off the ground, you're not going to sell much. If you happen to be somebody that's been around the block, has 10 books on the table, is well known, people are going to gravitate to that table. So you've got to look at the composition as well as to whether or not you're going to sell books. It's maybe somebody will see you and remember you later, but do you want to sink 3 to 4 hours of your time into hoping somebody discovers you?
You threw out a comment about ads. Do you ever
Mhm.
buy ads? What is your cautionary, I think it was a cautionary point you made. Like you throw out an ad, but you're not making the other effort to connect with readers. You should manage your expectations there. Other thoughts on whether authors should invest in ads at different stages in their career?
I've seen people do well at ads. I think it depends on the genre. In my genre, I don't see it doing that well. And I am more comfortable being in person than I am running the ads. It's okay, so they discover your book. Have they discovered the author? And I think that carries more weight in the long run. I no, I don't buy many ads at all. I tend to do other things. I'll give you one example. Well, I can give you two examples. One is when I have a book coming out, and I used to make it a goal of writing 50 blog posts for people. I'd spend weeks running down blogs, now Substack, Medium, columns, those types of things, and saying, would you like an article? The only condition is that we have to mention my book coming up for sale. And I don't care what the subject is, I will write for it. And I used to put in 30 to 50 every time I had a book release, and I could see results from that. Now, a lot of people don't want to write that much. I mean, that's a lot of blogs. And I wasn't duplicating, I was promising something original. But I've written long enough for Funds for Writers that I can throw something out 500 words together, like that. So uh, it's, to me, that's cheap advertising. And it's a little more permanent mark out there than buying an ad and hoping somebody sees it. So I've done that. In terms of review copies, I have sacrificed and I buy 100 copies of my book when it's time to release. It's expensive. I do know that but I get my return on investment. And I will get reviews that way. I've put out as many as 50 review copies, and I don't do ebook copies. I do print. And people think that is marvelous that you're willing to give them a print autographed book for them to review rather than, I hate to say it, cheaply put an ebook. And I don't care who it is, they're going to realize it's cheaper for you to do an ebook. That's just a file. So I will send out 30 to 50, and then 30 days, contact them and say, did you get the book? Just to touch base. Usually that prompts them to go, oh, I got to read that book. And then they'll pull it up. I'll start seeing reviews pop up. 30 days later, I contact them and go, did you enjoy the book? And I'll get a few more. They'll go, oh, I haven't finished that, whatever. And they'll throw up more. And then I quit. So let's just say out of 50, I hope to get 30 to 40 reviews. I consider that superb. Just excellent. And just that little bit of personal touch, again, the human connection, prompts them to do a review. Now, if they never do, then of course I won't contact them again, or if they ask, I won't send them another book. They just fall off the list. And I've got a steady group of people that whenever a book comes out, they review it. Now it's habit for them.
How did you create that list? What is the makeup of that group?
Um, I've used my social media for the most part, and just say, hey, I've got a book coming out. I need some reviews. Anybody interested in getting a free review copy? It will be paperback unless you want otherwise. I get plenty of offers. I will actually private message them and go, are you able to review on Amazon? Because a good third of them won't be able to. And I ask them, do they can they review on Amazon, which means they can also review on Goodreads. And we go from there. But I touch base with them. I'm not just throwing out to anonymous people. And it really works. It works on keeping a fan because they've connected with me as well. Hey, she's a real person. She's really into this. And people love that. People really, really love that. So I usually do it by social media. And as my social media has grown, then of course I got a bigger sea to pull from. And that's pretty much it. Just don't throw them out there without vetting who you're throwing them out to.
And spend bad money over good. Yeah, of course. And you're mostly inviting them or engaging with them to review on Amazon and Goodreads. Any other platforms?
I pretty much leave it up to them and say, as a minimum, that's what I'm asking for. And if you're able to, I would greatly appreciate it. You know what? You kind of give them some credit. How, use your own reach, talk to your own people. I appreciate whatever you can do. And you got to appreciate these readers rather than just throw a book at them and expect them to read it and throw up a review. And I see this all the time on social media. I lurk on so many sites. I'm trying to get a read on things out there, and people get angry when they only get a 10% return on reviews. And it's because you haven't vetted who you gave them out to.
Okay, it's a lot of work, but over time, super pays off, especially if you have a series or you're doing
Very
multiple,
much.
reaching out to the same people over time. Great. And the timing of that, do you get those author copies pre-order, or is it not necessarily for you about getting them before the book is out?
I'm not big about pre-orders. You know, I will do pre-orders, but not terribly far ahead of time. Up 2 weeks, a month. I don't really see that. I've done it pre-order and not pre-order, and I don't see much difference. I just don't. And to me, it's a little bit painful to have to juggle that pre-order to tell you the truth. So right now, my next book, I won't do a pre-order. I've decided I don't have the time to do the pre-order, so I'm just going to announce that it's going to be released about this time and release it.
That makes total sense for your kind of readership. A question from Nancy in the chat. How do you overcome Amazon vetting process of a reviewer who did not buy the book on Amazon because they received it free or bought direct from the author? I think you said you vet up front. Are you able to review it? What does that look like to you?
I asked them, are they, and the thing is, they don't have to have purchased that book on Amazon. Okay, as long as they are doing business with Amazon on a regular basis, Amazon's going to be fine with it. But somebody that's not doing $50 to $100 a month business with Amazon, Amazon's going to snub. They just are. That's their business. And uh, but they do not have to buy it directly from you. But also they're seeing what sales I'm making. So they know I'm going to have review copies. They're not that stupid. But uh, just those people just have to have an easy relationship with Amazon in order to get their review published.
And potentially to get it promoted more when it comes to Goodreads as well. Is that, yeah.
Yes. And of course, we all know the more reviews, the more attention you're going to get. It's, I have bought, I'm going to back up one point. I have used BookBub in the past. They're expensive, especially for mystery. It's one of the most expensive genres that BookBub does. I have always gotten my return on investment, but I don't see where it does just a tremendous amount of good. Once again, it justifies my stance that I can do more in person and doing personal relationships than I can cold ads.
There's some agreement in the chat here that BookBub is quite expensive and a waste of time, according to Lynn. Yeah. Others have had good experience. It's been really good for gems. So yeah, depends on the person, depends on the genre, depends
It does.
on number of books. Absolutely. Okay. Just switching gears a little bit. Talk a little bit about funds for writers. As you see it all, you see grants, you see fellowships, you see contests. What is actually paying off for writers and allowing them to have a sustainable career these days?
It's not grants. Instantly, people want to grab a grant. And grants are just like a market or a contest. You've got to vet them, you've got to compete for them, and you've got to convince the person on the other end that you're worthy of the funds. Uh, Grants are pretty much limited to, I mean, there's nonprofits out there. I mean, Stephen King has one. You've got Elizabeth George has one. You've got a lot of grants out there. They're not big. They're not big. A lot of people want, hey, can I get 25,000 so I can write this book and not have to work? No, you can't. That doesn't exist. Not unless you want to get some grand grant because you are so successful already. That's where those come from. Grants are usually small. They can be 500 to 10,000. And that's not going to be enough to help you leave the day job. And each one is different. There's no two alike. I tell people to contact their arts commission, their humanities commission in their state. Most people don't even know they exist, but those people have their finger on the pulse of the arts to include writing in their state. And they can point you in other directions as well. And they've got full-time people that will meet with you and help guide you in that. Some states are better than others. I'm amazed at how difficult it is to get a direct grant in, say, a state like California or Texas. Yet in Wyoming, they're a whole lot easier. It just depends. So you need to know where you are. I'm on the South Carolina Humanities Commission speakers roster. So whenever I go to speak to a library, not that I am anti-library. I will go to a library all day long, and I've got some really good, loyal librarians that call me back once a year, and I do an event. But the South Carolina Humanities Commission will pay my fee to come because I've been vetted and put on a speakers roster. And most states have that. So without even blinking an eye, speaking 45 minutes, $350. Just showing up. So it's nice. But those are the entities that know what's going on in your state. There are other random grants, and I post those every time I find them. And the key is to be able to meet their mission statement, because they have people they have to prove themselves to. They have to be successful too. Contest, oh my gosh, contests have exploded. And they used to be a lot easier. They used to be a lot more honest. Let me just put it that way. I can spot a scam a mile away now, and I will call one out. I'm watching one right now, and I'm getting this close to calling them out. They're just not that big, and they're just getting started, and I'm seeing all the mistakes. But contests are really, really good to open doors for people. I believe everybody ought to enter contests. I used to enter one a month just for the heck of it. And because they have an entry fee, to me, only makes them stronger, not weaker. They've got to be able to fund the advertising for the contest, maybe a judge. A judge charges a fee. I've charged a fee to judge contests. And not to mention the prize money. That prize money has to come from somewhere, and it's not just entry fees. So, and I believe an entry fee needs to be reasonable. No more, over the years, I've learned anything more than 5% of the first prize money is excessive. And they can open doors. You don't know who's going to read that manuscript. Of course, look at who the judges are. Look at who's behind the contest. You don't want it to be anonymous. You want to know the human beings behind the contest and know why they're even holding the contest. But once you pass those hurdles, then really somebody can they're going to advertise for you that you won their contest or you placed in their contest. You can't buy advertising like that. There's a caveat with that is novel contest. When you're sending a complete novel, you will see higher entry fees because somebody's got to read your novel. But I want the prize money to be equal. I mean, to be relative to it. There's a lot of contests that have an $85, $75, $95 entry fee, and then you win notoriety and a sticker on your book and come to their conference and all. No, I'm sorry. Not interested.
Show me the money.
That's it.
How do you spot a scam for among contests? How do you spot a contest scam?
First of all, I want to be able to email a human being and ask them whatever question I feel like asking. Who's won in the past? How can I talk to those people? How long have you been in the business? Who are the judges? How do you find the judges? Where's your money coming from? Why are you even holding this contest? What's driving you to hold it? Because I have a very good friend who runs two very legit contests a year. I know the money that can be made on a contest, but it's a very legit contest. It's a reasonable entry fee and a very nice prize purse. So it's legit. If you run one well, it's a win-win-win for everybody. But too many people think that they're going to make money by throwing contests out there. A brand new one, I get asked, keep in mind, contests come to me now and want to be posted in Funds for Writers. And I vet them. If they're brand new, I said, okay, I'm going to have to vet you. And I have literally told people, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable. When you get a little experience, come back to me. And I changed people's contest guidelines before when they realized it didn't sound good or it sounded scammy. But you want a human being. I don't want an entity running a contest. I want to know somebody who can talk to me human to human. Again, it's the human factor. Oh, there are thousands. There's a lot more literary contests than anything else, and you're going to see a lot of them with journals. Uh, and those are usually pretty legit. That's where they're going to get a lot of their material. These they're trying to make ends meet, and that's how contests support their literary journals. Those are good. Poets and Writers, pw.org, has some very good. Every one of those is legit. I can see, but again, mostly they're literary. If you're into commercial fiction and that's your mystery, romance, sci-fi, fantasy, all of that, the contests are not as many. And if when I find them, I put them out there. And now, if I see a new one, I will put my own note in Funds for Writers and goes, I've vetted it, but warning, this is brand new. They don't have a track record. And the one I said I'm vetting right now, I contacted the person running it and said, I see you had a group of winners last year, your first year. How can I talk to those people? I got crickets. They're brand new contests that say, oh, we've had winners in the past, and you can't reach those winners. You can't see those winners online. It's a scam. They just come and go like that. But you've got some that have been around 10 and 12 years that they're legit. And everything I put in Funds for Writers, I have vetted it inside and out.
What an amazing service. That's awesome. Like, how much would you expect, like maybe a median to submit for a contest? Because this all takes a lot of time. It's not like writers have, all this disposable income sitting around. Any thoughts on what you think is like a reasonable entry fee? Or is the
Depends on
range too
whether you're
big?
writing a flash fiction, short story, or novel. And the more words that have to be read, the higher the entry fee, because you're paying people probably to read these things. I limit it to me. If it gets more than 5% of the first prize money, I start looking harder at it as to why. And I've talked people off those entry fees before, where I've said, no, I can't post you in Funds for Writers because that's a little on the high side. Well, what's considered high? What's considered reasonable? And I've talked them off of those entry fees. But, if you're talking $100 first prize purse, $5. It's just the math. It's very simple. Now in Funds for Writers, I don't post any contest that pays less than a $200 first prize. To me, I want to see, and I prefer it more 500 to 1,000. I want to see legit contests, and usually the higher purses are more legit.
That is such a great rule of thumb, both of those rules of thumb. Thank you for that. Lots of love in the chat for your site. So we'll make sure in their newsletter this weekend that we share the subscription links so that everybody can follow you. So do you have a point of view on paid reviews and whether you think they're legit. And this could be any, there's obviously the Kirkuses of the world, but there's many variations on that. There's indie specific ones, there's Readsy. What are your thoughts on paying for reviews and whether they're trustworthy and a good investment for authors?
I have nothing against them, to tell you the truth, because I know some of the people behind, say, Readsy and you know the indie reviews group. They literally are hiring writers like you and me to do reviews. So you're getting them. I wouldn't bank on them, but they're a good barometer. If you're trying to get started and you want to get some reviews from them, I got no problem with that, really. Um, just make sure it's with someone credible, that's been around. There's nothing wrong with a Kirkus review. A good Kirkus review goes a long way. You get them to really like you, and bam, it's going to be out there. So no, I have no problem with it at all, and especially if you're just getting started. Just be aware they're going to be pretty hardcore. If they don't like you, they're going to tell you, and you've paid for that joy.
Um, PR is very difficult now in this era. It is so hard to get attention from reviewers, journalists. There are barely any book review sections left,
Right.
much less catering to, indie authors or niche, particular niche or genre interests.
I mean, you need to pitch it savvy, like you're trying to land an agent, you're trying to land a publisher. It needs to be well written, not just, hey, you wouldn't be reviewing books, would you? I mean, you need your request needs to be impressive, because keep in mind they're getting stacks of them. Now, knowing somebody who knows somebody still works. Still works. That's the human nature of things. I know a couple of reviewers in South Carolina that do for newspapers, magazines, and all, and they have reviewed several of my books, but I can't get them to review all my books. So uh, it's it's just like trying to find an agent or anything else. You just got to pitch it really, really, really well. Now, to get it is a coup. Sure, sure, it's going to put you out there, but this is a slow game, and I have trouble getting people to understand that. They'll write one book, two books, and then think, oh, this isn't working. No, it's not working. I didn't make a profit until my third book, and I was just hell bent on doing it. And I had luckily had a publisher who said, you need to be in this for the long haul or it won't work. And so I just kept putting books out there. I just never stopped writing. You don't want to look back over your shoulder. You want to keep moving forward on all this. So throw it out there and try to get a review in the magazines, but don't sit around biting your nails waiting for it to happen. Just,
Highly personalized outreach is good.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you do audiobooks?
Oh, that's another story. Yes, I've got, what do I have? I may have 12 out there right now. And I've done them myself. I luckily was with the South Carolina Department of the Blind and did audiobooks. I was a narrator for them. And of course, I turned it around and said, I'll start with my own books. Thank you. And so we did. I was able to maneuver copies from them and I put them out. And then COVID hit, lost my producer, um, lost access to more narration, my recording booth, all of that. I can do it from home. I know how to set up a studio. The problem now is I've got readers that expect 2 books a year. And recording audiobooks, uh, I don't make as much on audiobooks as I do on print books. Let me just put it that way. So to take that kind of time away, keep your average audiobook on my side, my size book, which is about 90 to 100,000 words, is an 11-hour audiobook. Okay, you can just multiply that times 5 as to how many hours it's going to take you to slog through that to get it done. You've got to read it all. You're going to make mistakes. You've got to learn how to edit, which is not as easy as it sounds. And you've got to have the equipment. And then you've got to feel comfortable with the engineering side and uploading it to Audible or wherever you're going to do it. It's slow. It's slow. And I can say the return on investment is not the same as with print. So right now, I'm not doing audiobooks. I've told myself in 2027, I'm going to put aside a few months and do a few more. But it is time consuming. And if you hire someone, it's very expensive.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is getting cheaper and there's proliferation of ways to do it. I'm sorry that happened with the during COVID though, that pesky pandemic. Just story after
Yeah,
story.
it did.
Yeah. We're gonna answer Jen's question, we hope. What is a good, clear path to getting to writing full time? Probably many paths. What goalposts do we need to reach, and when do you know when you can live off your writing in a sustainable and a constant way? How do you maintain that? Well, that's a very big question. Do you want to take a crack at it?
um, you've got to know what your lifestyle is and what your minimal. What do you need? Make sure you've got, I emphasize this, healthcare insurance. Please make sure you've got healthcare insurance somehow. Freelance healthcare is a bear. It just is, and it's expensive. So if you've got a spouse or you've got a previous job that you can grab that from, the only reason I waited till I did to leave the federal government was to grab healthcare. So I don't have to worry about that now. Uh, but I would suggest doing it part-time like I did, and I was taking measure. If I'm working 20 hours a week, what is that in terms of an income? If I double that, am I going to double my income, or is the administrative going to start slipping in? And I've got to now do estimated taxes and things like that. You are your own bookkeeper. That's going to take some time away from it. Understand what you're getting into. When to take the leap is when you feel comfortable, you've got enough steady income coming in from the part-time, in my opinion. But at that time, I have laughed and said I was a total writing whore at the time. I would write anything if you paid me. And if you are a decent writer, you should be able to do that. And so, yes, I've written all kinds of things, and I made sure I had this little trick I did, keeping 13 in play. And I've written that in several articles. It's where I kept 13 submissions outstanding at all times. At all times. And when I got rejection, I stopped what I was doing, put another one out there to keep 13 going. If I got accepted, I stopped what I was doing and put another one to keep 13 outstanding. What it did is it kept you moving forward and looking for markets and being productive rather than, chewing your nails and waiting, or are they going to respond? What if they don't respond? It keeps you from wallowing. So but you always, you also glean new markets and you keep seeing new ways to earn a living. If you want to be a novelist, you can't start off earning a living as a novelist. It's kind of in relation to how long it takes you to write it. If it takes you a year to write, it's going to take you a long time to earn any money from it. A short story, a 1,000 word feature, you can submit those and get paid in 30 days. So I would have enough of those little short-term incomes coming in to make sure I met my minimum and then tell myself I could write my novels.
I love the rule
It's,
of 13. She's turned 13 into a lucky number, people.
yes, that's the reason I picked it. It was like a defiance.
That's cool. I like that. You know what? There's been some questions in the chat around self-publishing and traditional publisher. How did you make that call? Did you switch between them? Would you consider yourself a hybrid? What's your take on self-publishing today versus trad?
I've done both. I've done both. A good deal of my books were traditional. And I vowed that if I was going to write fiction, I was going to do it traditionally. I wanted the self-satisfaction that I was vetted and found worthy. I guess you could say that. At the same time, I self-published a little bit of nonfiction because I had funds for writers on the side. I had a given market for that. So I've done both. And yeah, this isn't widespread. I guess it's getting out there now. About a year and a half ago, my publisher retired. I'd been with them 15 years. 14 years. And I said, okay, who are you selling to? Because I just assumed they were going to sell the publishing house to somebody bigger. And they said, we've decided we're going to just give everybody's rights back. And I went, no, I don't want my rights back. I know the work that goes into having to self-publish something. And she goes, oh, hold on, I'm going to hold your hand. We're going to help you set up. And so they helped me set up, and I literally had to convert 22 books from being traditional. I had to buy my rights back. I now have hired the same graphic designer for my covers, the same formatter. I've even grabbed an editor. And so now I'm running my own little publishing house, I guess you could say it. Because the last thing I want to do is format my own book or design my own cover. That's not what I do. I'm a writer. And I learned through traditional presses that they have people that are experienced at doing those things and have learned how to do it profitably, where I'd have a huge learning curve. And I don't want to draw covers. So anyway, now I'm Edisto Bridge Books, and could I publish other people? Yes. Do I want to? No. And I had to convert, and I converted as if I were a small publishing house, and so I went with Ingram Sparks. But I also know how to use Amazon and balance with it. And you really have to have your act together to go with Ingram Sparks. It's not Amazon. It's not KDP. It's apples and oranges. I see a lot of fussing about having to deal with Ingram Sparks, and that's because they don't suffer fools. I hate to put it like that, but they're there for bigger fish, I guess you could say. And since they opened up Ingram Spark from Ingram, that opened the door to self-publishing, but they also don't want to get mired in the reeds with little issues that self-publishers have. So it's here it is, you can use it, but we're not here to hold your hand kind of thing. So self-publishing is hard. When I hear somebody self-publishing and they come to me and start asking for advice, I will instantly go, how are you publishing and why? And when they can't talk traditional, then I tell them, stop what you're doing. Until you can talk all aspects of all types of publishing, you don't know what you don't know. So know it all so you can know the pros and cons as to what would best benefit you. Did I make less money traditionally? Of course I did. Of course I did. I'm already seeing a big difference in self-publishing. But I also have a good number of books out there, and I already had a brand and I already had a following when I made that switch. And that was done intentionally. I wanted to be validated traditionally before I made the leap to self-publishing.
Sounds like a really great path. That's really interesting. I'm sure there was a big switching cost there in terms of your time and energy. Do you sell directly?
I've got my site set up to sell directly. Uh, and I do. Especially book clubs and things like that. You've got to be able to do that to a certain degree.
Excellent. Okay, we've got the last questions. We're going to go just a few minutes late if you can take that time, Hope.
I'm
Would that
fine.
be okay? Oh, amazing. Thank you. We almost never go late on this call, but we've got two questions, and I invited these questions. So, first, Don, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yes, Hope. Just a very quick question. I'm on your email list as well. Where are you finding freelance writing opportunities? For example, are you using Fiverr or other places to go to find those opportunities? Thank you.
No, I don't use Fiverr. I think we're better than that. Nothing's wrong with Fiverr just getting started, but I do think a lot of people get stuck with Fiverr thinking that's what they're worth. I think LinkedIn is excellent, and I get markets from all over. Right now with Funds for Writers, they come to me a lot of times. But it's a matter of how you can do your search engines out there, how you can search for them. There's so many markets out there that we don't readily see on the standard newsletters. And it's a matter of how you Google them as to how they're going to come up. But also, something that's underestimated is trade magazines, and they're not advertised. trade magazines, I don't care if you're a baker, an engineer, an attorney, writer. Writer's Digest is considered a trade magazine because it's catering to a certain cadre of people that specialize. Okay, they don't advertise their calls for submissions because they prefer their readership to contribute. Uh, I have published in many of those. My degree that didn't even come up. My degree is in agronomy. Okay, it's that is soil science. For those of you who don't know what agronomy is, I went to Clemson University in agriculture. So I'll tell you this: I've grabbed a bunch of freelance assignments by going to Turf Magazine, landscape management, things like that, and pitched them from that angle, and then say I'm also a professional freelance writer. And those are the easiest things to break into, and they pay more quickly because they're funded not by subscriptions, but by advertisers. And so trade magazines are really great. You Google trade magazines, and they're just going to just pop up everywhere. It takes a little bit of work. There's not one place that gives you all of your freelance markets out there. And it depends on whether or not you want to write for a magazine, you want to write for a company, you want to write on a regular basis, say so much per month to write so many blog posts, or you want to be paid a flat rate for whatever you write. I did a really good, I think, article for Writer's Digest that comes out in their annual, I wish I had it out here to show you. That is, what should writers charge? And I kind of give you all different angles as to where you can pitch for freelance work there. And it can be just for, I could go to my dentist and say, hey, for $100, I'll write your feature for your newsletter. You know, it's everywhere. There's a little magazine here in Chapin, my hometown, and she'll come to me periodically and said, you got an idea? I got $100. I can't do much more than that. And if it's an easy piece, I'll do it. They're everywhere. I wish I could do a whole session on just where it are. They're everywhere. But it's no longer just writing. Sometimes if you're going with an entity, and always look at new businesses, they're always hungry and they don't ever have their act together. So they're always looking for advice from writers. You may suggest a newsletter to them. You may suggest writing their advertising, their employee handbook. Think outside the box as to what you can write for new companies coming into town, that type of thing. But finding just writing for magazines or just writing for an entity, simple Googles, there are some Substack groups. I have a couple of subscriptions. I'll pay somebody. I've got a couple that I pay $5 or $6 a month just so I get their constant feed of what's coming out. Because, like, I don't have a feel as to what's going on in the UK, but I want to know because some of those cross over into the US. I do a lot of research, but I have to for Funds for Writers, but it's not that hard to find. I wouldn't rely on one place.
Thank you.
That was a really helpful answer. Thank you so much. Last question, Richard, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, and thank you, Don.
Thank you, Linda. I'm a single book writer, launched last September, and I've been doing events regularly every month and have some scheduled through December. My question is, what is the shelf life of a book? And how long can I keep trying to marketing the book? Or is there a point where, and it's nonfiction, so it's got longer staying power in that sense?
That was going to be my first question. Nonfiction does have a lot longer shelf life because you are, as the author of nonfiction, the expert of that subject. So you are selling not only the book, but yourself and your knowledge and your expertise. So as long as you can keep pumping that, you'll get invited back. I know a lady in this state that does a lot of history. She's done a lot of really good South Carolina history. And I don't think her latest book, her most recent book is 5 years old. And she's still on the speaker's market with South Carolina Humanities because history, humanities, you know, she makes rounds doing that. Sooner or later, somebody's going to ask for what else you're working on. But I would try to do more than one book. On fiction, you have to. You have to. There are no one-hit wonders anymore.
Yeah,
But nonfiction, you can make one stretch out a good long ways. Talk to your humanities commission. You might get a lot more speaking opportunities through them.
right. Thank you.
Good luck, Richard. Thank you for the question. All right. What my takeaway here is hope is consistently systematic, positive, and open-minded about putting her energy into the world as an author and as a sort of connector to readers. You make it sound easy, but I'm sure you're also one of the hardest working women in show business based on this interview. And then on top of that, Funds for Writers is you've made a mark in the world by putting out this resource to vet opportunities. And that mark on the world is, I think there's going to be a lot of grateful people on this call and in our newsletter for that. So thank you for doing that work and appreciate your time today.
Oh, I could talk about this for hours. No, I love what I do. I do love what I do, and that old saying about you don't work a day when you're working what you love. And I couldn't sell my books to start off with, so don't let that hold you back. My mother was friends with Fern Michaels. Okay, she says, "Hey, Mary's having a party. Come on, I'll get her to buy your book." I'm like, "Okay." Didn't happen. I got rejected by her agent. So I put it up on the shelf, but I was hell bent on making money from my words, if that makes sense. I love writing too much. So that's where I went. I did the freelance thing until I made a name for myself in that. I just showed up to work every day. It's just that much. I love doing it. So I showed up to work every day and then went back once I felt I had mastered the words a little bit better and went back and looked at the novel and read that first draft and went, "Oh, wow, that sucks." And realized I had grown so much in just putting one word after the other in freelancing. And I tossed it and rewrote it. It's the more words you write, the better you get. It's just that simple.